of a storm.
Every year when it gets around August 29th, all of the memories start to rush back.
It's going to be a tough one.
It's stressful. It's emotional.
What's that sign say? End? No, it's not end, it's the beginning. The beginning of a new life for everybody in New Orleans.
Tell me who you are.
I'm Jamie Bonk. That's what everybody knows me as. My real name is James. And some people in the neighborhood refer to me as the boatman, because that's what I do. I fix the motorboats. Let's see if I can make this thing come alive.
How long has it been since you fired this baby up?
Years. I get pretty emotional every time. That's why I don't drag this stuff out every day, you know. But when I pulled it out the other night, I was crying pretty good. I get over it. It's just the whole trauma. I guess I relive it in an unconscious way, you know.
Two days before the storm, what was going through your mind? Do you remember?
Well, I've always rode out, you know, the storms, never have evacuated. And so it was just routine for me, getting prepared, getting my groceries, water.
Yo, Truman. It's the most valuable possession in the house. Getting ready for the hurricane. Mom said go ahead and video all our wonderful possessions here.
Oh, that's your dog back then?
I had 2 dogs at the time.
The generator's gonna be gold if I need it.
Corps of Engineers took this tape to use it for, they wanted to compare my clock to the water levels in the street.
Yeah.
And they did a little scientific review, and they pointed out to me that my dates were all wrong.
It costs less money than the last one.
These people hunkered down, they got ready, they boarded up.
As the news reports got pretty scary, you know, talking about the size of the storm and its direction.
We're not trying to frighten people, but this is one that we are, quite frankly, very frightened of.
140 mile per hour sustained winds as it moves towards our coastline. We're looking at an intensifying hurricane.
I had second thoughts about leaving late, but I didn't.
You can see this very well-defined eye getting closer and closer to southeast Louisiana.
This is my dad's.
As the water swirled through the Gentilly and Lakeview area, John Bonk was photographing the catastrophe.
Yeah, here at 501 Florida Boulevard, it's really been blowing like crazy. Very frightening.
Not that much rain, and the wind was the most that I had ever experienced.
Hell of a storm. This isn't normal.
It was loud, you know, I heard there's a giant tree next door that fell.
Well, there's my big oak, what's left of it.
When it hit the ground, my whole house shook.
The only important new acquisitions are the ping pong table. Nice ping pong table. I have moved everything up.
James Bonk is just a great guy. He felt like he was sitting pretty for Katrina. Like his wife and his sons got out of town. He was, you know, fully stocked to the gills. He had, you know, everything that he could possibly need for the storm. One of the things that struck me and my photographer, Rick Neese, when we were with him, was how traumatic it was for him to talk about it.
People don't realize how much it impacted them.
Yeah.
Even 20 years later.
It was actually 50 places where the levees broke, like the lower 9th Ward. You know, you had the breach at the 17th Street Canal. You had the New London Canal where there was a breach there. Then, of course, Chalmette, and the water just pouring over the levees through that whole funnel of the Mr. Go. I mean, just devastating communities just within hours.
The water starts rising up. The water's in the house. The water is coming up What has happened is a levee breach has occurred along the industrial canal.
Try to get to the high point of your home.
All right, well, if y'all can find a boat, help.
All right, we will try to help you as we can.
All right. You know how much more this is supposed to come up?
I don't know how much more, sir.
I mean, this is the story that you heard about what could have happened to New Orleans, but never did.
It was surreal to be able to see something like that. There were waves up on top of that were probably 15 to 18 foot on top of what you saw from the hurricane protection levee.
We have a serious levee break at the 17th Street Canal.
I would say about 10 minutes after we saw it rising, I was pretty certain that the levee had to be breached. When I saw that, I'm sure my coworkers had the same reaction. You know, my heart just dropped. Even though I knew the levees were breached before that, seeing it, and just knowing that the fate of the city was sealed.
I remember sitting with Paul Ricardo, and someone in Lakeview said that the 17th Street Canal had breached. And we asked him, well, how do you know that the water is flowing into the neighborhoods? And I remember the guy saying, the police officer saying, because I see my house going down the street. And I think at that moment we realized, wow, this is serious.
The water's still coming up. We got 4 to 5 feet of water down here. Everything's floating, everything's lost downstairs.
When the levee broke on the 17th Street Canal,
This is Airline Highway.
we never got a call from anybody. The water just started rising in Old Metairie, which is very strange because Old Metairie is higher. It's like on a ridge. Just water was coming up. I said, this is very strange.
12 to 15 feet of flooding, essentially, in Jefferson and Orleans.
We were at the station, and we're hearing officers screaming for help. Like, we had one police woman, she was trapped in her, she was pregnant. So they had to rescue her. And she said, water is all over my house. Another one, he got on the air, he said, look, I can't get out of my house. I'm in the east, my house, the water is up to, I'm going in my attic. So we're hearing people telling him, like, shoot the attic up so you can get holes just enough where you can punch and get out of there so you can stand on your roof.
You're doing boat rescues. And I said, you got to get me on a boat.
And we got lives to save. We got people to go get. And that's what we did. And then we started commandeering boats. We told the guys to go find whatever boat you can find, put it on the trucks and get it out of here.
I talked to a firefighter, actually, who said that they were hearing people screaming from the attics.
They tell me right now that they're still hearing people crying out for help. People are using guns to shoot in the air to be identified. They're using flares.
Well, not your fire extinguishers. We certainly don't want to condone that.
We got up this morning, it was just wind and rain, and all of a sudden the water just started rising.
Daniel and Glenn LaCour say there was no room for them in the car when their wives and children drove away. They climbed into their attic and kicked out a wall panel to get daylight and to shout for help.
In a matter of 20 minutes, it was up this high.
I'm like, this can't be real. Is the city actually underwater?
Look at the buildings underwater here.
My heart is heavy tonight. I don't have any good news to really share other than at some point in time the federal government will be coming in here en masse. But the city of New Orleans is in a state of devastation. We probably have 80% of our city underwater.
No need for narration. We're in a tough situation here. There's no place to go that we know of.
While we're having this conversation today, I'm remembering things that I have not ever remembered before. It's strange.
That's hard.
But I felt helpless at some point.
I got a house full of people here. I can't keep bathroom and water going for long.
And one of your neighbors had to cut himself out of his attic?
Yes, across the street, the house was kind of low, and he didn't want to swim out of the front door. He didn't want to go underwater to pop up. He chose to go through the attic.
Assuming all these people get brought to the Superdome.
The water stayed here for 23 days after the storm.
It's a different perspective on life here.
We went to, I think the grocery was the Saver Center.
Going to the Saver Center. They're airlifting people out there.
On Leon C. Simon and Franklin. And we went out there only to see some looting. Some people were grabbing supplies that they needed. Some were grabbing things they shouldn't have been grabbing. But I didn't get out the boat or stop.
They are breaking through the storefront windows here with anything they can find.
Well, we've had a hurricane plan in place that has worked in the past for regular hurricanes. But there's no plan on the shelf that says when all the radios go out, what do you do?
We had no way to get information to the public.
When 80% of the city is underwater, what do you do?
Part of the problem is that the police are having difficulty, from what we understand, trying to enforce the laws here.
All the cowards that are here on the New Orleans Police Department that fled this city in a time of need, when you raised your right hand, you were sworn to protect these citizens.
Looking at this, I'm having flashbacks.
Yeah, about me talking about it, I'm having flashbacks.
New Orleans now looks like a war zone. Fires are raging out of control.
I just want to tell my wife, I love her.
The city had collapsed, pretty much. The governance of the city, it was just non-existent at that time. Non-existent.
We're on the West Bank in Gretna at the WWL-TV transmitter site. We're thinking this is a better location than that is right now because of the dangers.
How would you assess the condition of Jefferson Parish at this time?
Jefferson Parish, as we knew it, is gone forever.
Many people are being rescued and brought to the Superdome, so the dome population is growing. They do not have the facilities to accommodate the people who are there, particularly those with medical needs. So we are in the planning process right now of attempting to locate appropriate places to try to evacuate those folks who stayed in the city.
When I arrived in New Orleans on that Navy helicopter, we circled the dome twice, and imagine 16,000 people looking up at you. So I got off the helicopter and all those people looking at me like, is this the ride? Do we start getting the rides now? And I walked to the side of the Superdome to get out of the rotor washer of the helicopter, and I look over and I see a lady pushing a cart with a toddler up to his chest. I said, oh my God. We got all these people to get out, then we still got people trying to get to high ground. And I walked in the building and Megan was there. There was a FEMA regional guy there and a general from the National Guard. So just quick intro, I said, what's the priority? He said, John, we got to evacuate these people. And everything was clear as we got to evacuate. We can't maintain, we got these people that have been here since Sunday, and this is Wednesday morning.
Hundreds left the Superdome, crowding instead the convention center.
There are buses there, is that clear to you? Buses parked. There are 4,000 troops there. People come, they get on a bus, they get on a truck, they move on.
We were going in with 1,000 soldiers from 5 states to secure the convention center. That's the kind of thing, it takes months to plan something like that. And we were given the word at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, 5 days after the storm, and we went in, we didn't fire a shot. We secured the place in 30 minutes. We started feeding everyone in 3 hours, and we started evacuation at 19 hours. And at 30 hours after we got there, it was empty.
How did you get out?
Someone came by boat in a 15-foot little boat to get me, which we did put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 men and 3 dogs in a 15-foot boat. Wow. And we traveled from the University of New Orleans to past Manchac at 3 miles an hour. And if a wave was more than 4 inches, it was coming in the boat.
Oh my God, you had to be terrified.
Well, we were white knuckles, just all laying in the boat and praying for no squall. I was thinking, here I am, I survived the storm for 3 days, and then I get in a boat and go to the middle of the lake and I become crab bait. Nobody knew we were there, so we couldn't call for help. Nobody was looking for people in the middle of Lake Pontchartrain. So I was thinking, we can't go down. We just got to get to the other side.
This became
in fact, a shelter of last resort as people were being rescued from their homes. You had boats that were going down the streets. The waters had become rivers. You had jet skis going down there, picking up people that were stuck on their roofs. Hundreds of them ended up here at the St. Bernard Courthouse. I mean, you had a 25-foot wall of water that just came right up the Mistergo, and it just swamped this parish. One gentleman was telling me he actually had to dip down and come up to get into the courthouse because the water had gone up to the second floor. And again, we're in one of the highest parts of the parish, and for the water to get to the second floor here, that gives you an idea of just how high the flooding was that came in with Hurricane Katrina. I mean, this was a parish of more than 70,000 people before Hurricane Katrina, and every single building, home, structure, except for about 10, I'm told, did not survive the storm.
I went out to the front porch, and my porch is 3 feet high. The water pushed me off, and I swam to the people across the street. When I got across the street, it was on the gutters across the street. I climbed up on the roof.
More than 160 people in the parish died during the storm. Terry Petrie's mother, Joyce McGuire, is one of the names on St. Bernard's Katrina Memorial Wall in Shell Beach.
Hey, Joyce, you home? I hope you're cooking red beans and rice. I'm coming in.
He said it's comforting to visit the lot on Plaza Drive in Chalmette, where his family home once stood.
Good times. Katrina took it all. I miss the parties. You know, we used to have swimming parties every weekend. You know, sometimes we have a little band come in, you know, play music, and I'd be bartending with a keg of beer.
Petrie's mother suffered a fatal heart attack during her rescue.
All gone.
He was eventually pulled from the flood by a passing boat, taken to the parish courthouse, and evacuated to Baton Rouge. Many of his neighbors weren't as fortunate. They were stranded for days with little food and water on a dock at the Araby Marine Terminal.
Everybody was crying. Everybody wanted to go home, and we're told we couldn't go home. We didn't even have a home.
Nobody knew we were underwater. Nobody knew.
That's hard to believe.
There are things that are popping back into our heads that we really didn't want to think about anymore.
Attorney and business leader Walter Leger led a rescue mission from a pilot boat on the Mississippi River to save the St. Bernard evacuees. When the Araby native arrived at the dock, he said what he saw looked like something out of a horror movie.
We looked into the opening of this massive warehouse, which was ordinarily designed to hold cargo, and what it was holding was thousands of people.
The Dembruns admit they didn't know when or if they would be rescued. They took some pictures on the dock and inside the warehouse, where they spent several sleepless nights lying on stacks of plywood.
It was horrible. That's all I could say. It was horrible, horrible, horrible.
Nearly all of the parish's residents left in the immediate aftermath of the storm.
When an entire community is underwater, and every home is underwater, maybe with the exception of 10, and there's no schools, and there's no hospitals, and you've got to make decisions for your family, and you've got to move. You got to get your kid into school, and that happened.
John Lane moved to Mandeville after the storm, but the pull of home was too strong.
And I've decided to pack my family up after 9 years and come back here, and try and serve, and make a difference in this community, to rebuild it back.
Lane is now the executive director of coastal operations for the parish. He said others like him are moving back and new families are choosing St. Bernard.
Affordable housing is right next to the city with a great school system, a brand new state-of-the-art hospital, a fantastic police department, and a government that's doing everything they can to try and attract new businesses and rooftops.
St. Bernard has new flood protection that wasn't in place during Katrina. There are 23 miles of higher and stronger levees and flood walls. The 76-mile-long Mississippi River Gulf outlet, which acted like a funnel directing storm surge towards St. Bernard and parts of New Orleans, has been dammed off. The parish has also made major upgrades to its drainage and water systems.
I've heard Chalmette jokes all my life. And I said, go ahead, go tell them. I know what we got here.
So we just got off the twin span and we're approaching Oak Harbor, Lakeshore, the exit here. Just imagine where we're driving right now being underwater and boats just floating where the interstate should be. It was like that all the way from the shoreline of Lake Pontchartrain up to Old Spanish Trail. That's about 3 miles between the two. There was a lot of floodwater here in the city of Slidell, so one of the high points in the city was actually the railroad tracks. So first responders would often see people just walking, whether just in a daze or just looking for resources or just looking to survey the damage, up and down the railroad tracks through Slidell, because this was a point where you could actually put your feet on the ground and not have to be in, shin, knee-high water, depending on what area of the city you're in.
It wasn't the levees, it was the wind, the surge, and the silence afterwards.
When you looked at it, it was the entire Gulf of Mexico, and I knew we were in trouble then.
In St. Tammany Parish, communities like Slidell, Pearl River, Lacombe, and Mandeville were blindsided by the force of Hurricane Katrina. For those who stayed, many needed help.
There's quite a few memories there that kind of stick with me about it.
Slidell officer Rodney West Jr. remembers being in a flooded neighborhood trying to save people.
And we were losing flashlight power and everything, and just having to leave from back in that neighborhood in the boat, and you still hear people yelling for help, and you can't get back there because there's too many trees, too many power lines, and it's definitely too dark. There was no light whatsoever.
Like many areas, much of Slidell was underwater.
It was definitely a sight to see if you had to see it. It was just kind of hard to take in at first. Just going in places in a boat right after the storm passed through that I never thought I would ride a boat in.
Wow, it's just amazing to see all this debris that used to be homes and camps.
Infrastructure across the parish was either crippled or lost. More than 40,000 homes were damaged or destroyed.
I saw houses that pine trees just cut them like a piece of cake.
Tons of concrete that made up the twin span bridge no longer stretched across the lake. They fell to the bottom of it.
All the power lines from Covington to here were completely destroyed. I mean, just everywhere you looked, all the red lights, they were all on the ground.
Recovery wasn't easy or fast.
We're going to make it through, and that's what I kept telling people.
Parish leaders say revised emergency plans, upgraded infrastructure, and improved access to resources have put the parish in a much better place. The Twin Span Bridge was rebuilt and renamed Frank Davis Naturally Nollins Bridge in 2015 after the longtime WWL personality. Today, St. Tammany Parish has a growing population. Part of it is because of the sudden spike in new residents who evacuated the South Shore and never returned. Looking back, Davis says he's forever grateful to a community that didn't give up on itself.
I don't know how to put into words. I'm just grateful for the community that we had, that they came together.
So this is where Katrina lives now, here at WWL. And one of the people who is in some of these tapes is Meg Ferris. So Meg, come tell me what these are. I mean, when you look at this, what goes through your mind?
It's so surreal. It truly, truly is. But as I was looking at all the labels, I remember every one of these stories with Nagin. I remember coming into the city because they separated us, split the newsroom in half. And half was on the West Bank, which didn't really flood as much, at our transmitter. And the other half of us was broadcasting out of Baton Rouge. And so we kept coming in every day to do stories, and we could get past police presence and National Guard because we had press passes. The city was empty. It was absolutely empty. But we lived together. For like 6 weeks, we lived in that Baton Rouge station. And a lot of times we just slept on the floor in that newsroom when we were working.
So many of you also lost your homes. I can't even imagine. what that was like going through
Why
that.
20 years later do I get upset? But I do, because, you know, I quickly learned, Katie, that sofas and refrigerators can be replaced. Letters from your deceased mother can't. Family heirlooms can't. That was difficult. And a lot of people said, oh, it's just stuff. But that stuff made you who you were, that note from your grandmother.
All right, Carl, what was the last season you forecasted as chief?
2018, because I retired in 2019 in February. So it was 2018, and I can't even remember that year, what went on that year. I just know I'm glad that I retired before 2020.
Yeah, it was an active one.
That would have put me in the grave, I think. I couldn't imagine going through round after round after round of storms coming in and moving through. So yes, I think I got
timed it well.
Yes, I think now it's for you younger folks.
Kind of looking back on a lot of the footage from Katrina. In 2005, I was only a year out of college. I had an apartment. I didn't have kids.
Right.
I didn't have a home.
Right.
I didn't have property.
Yeah.
You did. You knew you weren't protected in Slidell.
Oh, yeah,
So
no.
what was going through your mind while you're forecasting the storm?
Well, I thought more of wind damage, and I saw a radar, and I saw where it was coming on land around Plaquemines Parish, and I knew the track would take it one side of the eye wall over Slidell.
Right.
I thought to myself, many people aren't going to have homes to return to, and that was including me. So I thought my home was going to be completely destroyed by wind damage. So when I got back to my home, I saw the structure. I said, oh, the structure looks fine. Yay.
Oh, wow.
And then when I went inside, you saw everything muddy, water, everything moved around. I saw a toy chest from one bedroom all the way into the living room, comes through a hallway. And so, I mean, refrigerator leaning over. So I knew that, yeah, I didn't have a home to come back to.
Kind of bring us back to when you first started to how the technology had improved up to 05.
Okay. When I first got here, we used the old die-fax machine. So computer models were coming out of a big roll of paper. We'd tear them off. So we'd have the large sheets on the desk and we'd be analyzing them. And so it took a while for them to keep printing. It's not like now everybody can see all the models on the internet.
It's going to be right along this area coming on shore. And
we saw the progression in hurricane forecasting improve throughout the years. And from Katrina, I mean, the forecast cone of error was large. I mean, it was wide. So, I mean, you had an idea where something was going to go. You still had an idea about the intensity, but today we're almost pretty sure where something's going to go. Still a little iffy on that intensity.
When that first cone comes out, it doesn't dramatically shift. No, it still can.
Right.
Hurricane Katrina continues to move west. Where will the storm make landfall? When will it turn north? John Gum is in the Weather Center. Let's get right to this, John. Any new information for us?
No new information just yet.
It was a Friday, August 26th. It was a Saints preseason game. People were going out on a Friday evening for the Saints game. So Friday morning and afternoon, that forecast track was in the Florida Panhandle. All right, we're going to the Saints game. It's not coming here. Everything's great. What happens when the 10 o'clock advisory comes out? Boom, big shift, and we had never seen a shift like that.
It was a dramatic
Yes.
shift, but they don't usually make these dramatic changes,
No.
but they did for Katrina.
Right, and when that track came out that Friday evening, of course, people went to bed not knowing it, and then the next morning, you only had 48 hours before landfall, so we didn't have the 72 hours of evacuation time that we need. And you look at that Friday evening track, Plaquemines Parish, Mississippi line, pretty much where it finally ended up, 2 days later.
This is going to be a big test all over the place. After this happens, we're going to find out what has to be done and how those levee systems did protect or not protect against this Category 5 hurricane.
Where is my country? Where is my president? Where are the agencies? Where the hell are they?
When we look at, public policies that are being proposed now, like changing the way that FEMA is, changing some of the things that were put into place from the lessons that we learned from Katrina, I think it's really important to look back and say, this is what we're trying to prevent.
The government failed to do its job, and the people suffered. It's a moment we should never forget, and it is one that we should never repeat.
FEMA, what a joke.
I blistered FEMA. I think Time Magazine had a quote that I made. I said, you know, we need better idiots. We need more caring idiots, more sympathetic idiots. But these people at FEMA were idiots.
We came out of Katrina with a rework of FEMA, double the size of it, with directions from the Congress that we should have people running FEMA that have emergency management experience. But the DOGE cuts already cut a third of their employees out of FEMA.
Right, right.
From what we had last year, and they struggled to get through hurricane season because we had 2 of them bad boys back to back and wildfires and floods all over the U.S.
CBS News has obtained portions of an internal review warning the Federal Emergency Management Agency is not prepared for hurricane season. We
were told that 180 FEMA employees have been placed on administrative leave. They're the ones that signed a letter telling Congress that they weren't comfortable going into a major disaster with the diminished workforce there. Do you have any concerns about that, knowing that we're in the peak of hurricane season here, and that's another 180 employees from FEMA that won't be available?
No, I don't. I mean, look, we have watched FEMA grow into a monstrous bureaucracy under which we can't actually get things done. The city of New Orleans still has hundreds of millions of dollars since Katrina, and that is because of the FEMA bureaucracy. What Kristi Noem has done is just lately, we call her, we say, listen, these are projects that need to be moved. We had one in Terrebonne Parish, one in Lake Charles. And so, no, I'm not. I think it's all just a bunch of media hype trying to scare people. We're ready for hurricane season. Look, natural disasters and things that come on our shore, you're never 100% ready. But I can tell you what, the team that we put together has showed Louisiana that we can move when we need to.
This is why we made all these changes. This is why New Orleans has a better levee system. This is why FEMA stages assets closer when they know something's coming.
Right.
This is why we don't put high water vehicles and all of our National Guard equipment at Jackson Barracks.
Right.
This is why we don't do these things. Like, there's a reason for that. And if you don't take time to look back at the past, you don't remember that for the future.
Here we are back at home sweet home, where we lived post-storm for 3 days.
There was no power out here for months. So when the sun would go down, it was total blackness, this neighborhood.
What was that like?
That was different. It was scary. But all the way till November, almost maybe, we didn't have a street light till almost Christmas after the storm. And it was eerie.
Well, I've moved a lot of stuff out of here with the intention of pulling my carpets. I don't know if I'm going to do the work myself or not.
Early on, there was no plan. There was nobody saying, the city was not issuing the building permit, first off, and that was known. There was, the city wasn't going to issue any building permits till certain things got sorted out. And that went on for for a long time, as I kind of remember. But we didn't know when we were going to have utilities. There was just no good, a lack of information.
We'll live in this house again, I hope.
And then it took you how many years to build one of these houses so you could move back to the
It
neighborhood?
took a whole year to finish the first house.
One of the other things that struck me about James Bonk was that it wasn't just the storm, it was the fact that the recovery took a long time. That trauma didn't end with the storm, it continued for over a decade. And I think that's true for so many people in New Orleans. Some people still aren't recovered from it, in fact.
Yeah, that's the case for a lot of people in New Orleans East, and that's where I grew up. That community used to be in the 60s and 70s, it was really going through an economic boom. Everything was going really well there. But it started to take a sort of an economic downturn right before the storm, and right as they were about to try to fix this, the storm hit and everything just it just kept going downward. For people in New Orleans East, we're now 2 decades out, and they're still demanding if we can get at least a shopping center, if we can at least have a second major grocery store, or if we can get someone to just kind of rebuild what it made us so economically sound a few decades ago.
New Orleans East was truly a mecca.
The Lake Forest Plaza was the real it, you know, with the skating rink and the stores. I mean, it was truly just a paradise in many ways.
Tangi Walls saw the vision. Tangi would settle in the more affluent Eastover subdivision, and you could see its appeal. An exclusive country club-style neighborhood with beautiful views of a man-made lake and a sprawling landscape.
You're looking at the breach itself. 400 feet of wall is missing.
Like a majority of New Orleans, when the levees broke and floodwaters rushed into the city, the East was devastated.
When my family evacuated to Baton Rouge, everyone was in a devastated state of mind, condition, couldn't believe it. It was like no other experience, I think, in my life. It mobilized me and my family.
It's just hard to fathom. Look at that. Those are homes.
After about 3 weeks to a month of not hearing anything, we began to say, well, what are we going to do? It's our responsibility to really find out what's going on in our neighborhoods. We were called East New Orleans United and Whole.
Right.
And it was a group of residents like myself, family, friends, neighbors, community, strangers that all got to know each other from the neighborhoods that all had the same feelings. What's going on in New Orleans East?
It was no goodness of our own, but it's your love and your grace.
20 years later, the group now known as New Orleans East Matters continues to ask that question. It's clear when you drive around the East today, prosperity seen decades earlier is replaced by long stretches of underused land and hollowed commercial corridors. The oil crash of the 80s slowed growth, and Hurricanes Katrina's floodwaters dealt another deadly blow. Though we've seen some progress, residents say they still live in Katrina's shadow.
We were originally supposed to be a very strong middle-class community primarily for black people who had wealth, who had jobs, who had assets. And so New Orleans East families had a chance to try to figure out, so are we going to continue that?
I'm going to say the biggest thing, Sharice, is investment. There has to be some investment there.
Still, economic corridors are barren.
Was there ever a strategy or a strategic plan that just never played out for New Orleans East?
Shortly after Katrina, in the master planning strategies, and they were doing master planning for several communities throughout New Orleans.
Turning canals into parks and revitalizing decaying shopping centers and strip malls into outdoor plazas.
And it was never really a substantial enough plan to really, really see a plan, a strategy, to really come to fruition for the East. We need everybody at the table, who can put together a 10 to 15 year strategy. But there has to be the political will to do that.
Collins says collaboration and incentives can go a long way. Take the Magnolia Marketplace located on the Claiborne Avenue corridor, for instance. The council created a special economic development district and approved a 1-cent temporary sales tax to finance bonds to get that project going.
We have got to have incentives to be able to lure businesses here.
According to commercial real estate broker Robert Hand, there are millions bleeding out of the large community.
What I found when I talked with residents in New Orleans East is we want businesses to come in and take a chance on us. Well, that's not going to happen. Businesses come in because they think they can make money. So I did the research. I dug deep into where people are spending their money that live there. This is just in New Orleans East. They spend $82 million, but there are only $53 million in grocery store sales. That's a gap. That's an opportunity for a business to come in and capture that $29 million difference. They are spending money outside the area because businesses are not in the area. So what I found was a misperception that New Orleans East does not attract businesses.
But even Robert admits the communities that inhabit the East faced another challenge: stigma. One resident and local leaders say is real and persistent, despite a downward trend in violent crime across the board.
We have a Marriott Express in New Orleans East now that just opened. Marriott bought their brand to New Orleans East. Why? Because crime was going down. They see the potential. What people are doing and not asset building in the East, they're actually participating into running us out of our community and away from our home. Because New Orleans East is representative of the largest collection of black homeowners of any municipal district. So why do we keep leading with how bad the East is?
Meanwhile, the lower Ninth Ward, the poster child of Katrina's devastation, faces problems similar to New Orleans East.
All you see is water, pretty much, and the tops of roofs.
Before the storm, more than 14,000 residents, mostly multi-generational homeowners, call the lower Ninth Ward home. Today, there are less than 5,100.
The damage was documented, it's legitimate. Where do those dollars go to? We're 20 years out still trying to get these blocks to look like city block. We're in the 1,000 block of Lizardi, right off of St. Claude. When we first got news about Katrina, we were evacuated. I just left a few days before. Did not plan to evacuate.
That's a lot of people from New Orleans.
Yeah. First time I always went vertical, got a hotel in local, but didn't travel that much. We had little kids. When we evacuated, the first thing I realized it was really serious is that I saw on the news the word Lizardi with water, only half of the word. That was my first kind of jolt. Like, we're not going to be able to get home as quickly as I really had envisioned. It's been a difficult road, but you know, some of us did get back. We did community planning. We asked people to do some insurmountable things. We were already homeless, and yet we are asking each other, hey, how do we envision our community to be back?
Government failed everybody around here. And I'm sick and tired of it.
How much of this is going to come down to literally just neighborhood associations doing the rebuilding because they're losing hope in local and state government?
Literally, that is the only reason we have the houses we have right now, because we took it upon ourselves to develop a community association and to do a redevelopment plan and to do a disaster recovery center. We literally went out, put our own dollars up, raise the other dollars. It was not because of a public effort. They found us working and then tried to jump on a bandwagon because they were embarrassed into action.
When they said they found you working, is that the work you did with Nina?
Yes, the work I did with Nina. I'm the founder of Lower Ninth Ward, Nina. We have a lot of families that are continuing to come back every day, and we're shopping elsewhere. Every day we go to buy our groceries, our the malls and all of those things. We don't have those services around here. That was established to redevelop and get our folk home because there was nobody here. As a matter of fact, the public officials literally were telling me, Trish, you know, tell the people to move somewhere else. It's not happening. The only reason that a community is not back is because of either failed policies or faulty policies.
Right.
So you can have a good policy and fail to implement it properly, or you can design a policy that's intentional to block folk from coming home.
What policy would that be?
One policy we had was we thought the road home policies was going to help get people back, hence the word road home.
Right.
But there was stuff in the policy that made it very difficult for folk to actually get home, right? Mm-hmm. You put in the word framework pre-Katrina value.
Right.
Immediately knocked out 75% of people's recovery.
I quickly found that because of the way they had created the program, the Road Home program, and giving grants based on the value of the house, not on the cost of rebuilding each house, you ended up in a situation where the same exact house, same size, same materials in two different neighborhoods, one majority black, one majority white, were getting different amounts of money because of the historically lower values of homes in black neighborhoods.
My uninsured losses were $250,000, and you know, I had flood insurance.
You said you couldn't have done it without the Road Home program and some other programs.
That was very vital. You know, that $150,000 that put this house back together. I had flood insurance, but not that much. You know, the flood and the homeowners, you know, it went quickly. And it would have been really, you know, almost impossible to put this house back together without that extra money. Prior to the storms, I had no mortgages, I had no car notes. Life was wonderful. After the storms, I had two mortgages, and SBA loans. I did, you know, mortgage to the hilt. Well, over the course of the 20 years, it's all paid back. Everything's paid for again. So it about killed me, but we're back. You know, it took 15 years to financially recover.
The unfortunate reality is you walk down just about any street in New Orleans, and behind each one of these doors is a story about how to keep the house, how to afford it, whether it's the cost of construction for renovations or keeping it insured. And what we found out was keeping the house insured was the biggest concern.
Oh, I'm very appreciative.
Gail Micken's appreciation comes with 20 years of living under the roof Katrina nearly ripped off.
I had bought the house in April, and the storm was in August. So by me not having that much water damage, but there was things that needed to be done. So I said that I'm gonna take the insurance money and pay off the house and do the work a little bit at a time.
Repairs here and there to her home in the Littlewoods neighborhood of New Orleans East.
I had to do a little bit at a time as the funds came in. So that's how my roof never got really fully repaired. And then the other storms kept coming in, and you know, so it was mostly patchwork.
Miss Gail's story is one of thousands, and like those thousands, it came with twists and turns she didn't see coming. 6 years after Katrina, her husband died. Already on that road to recovery, suddenly she had to figure out how to do it all by herself.
In 11, you know, the house still wasn't done, so I had to finish, you know, taking up that mantle of fixing my house. So it's been a long and slow process.
A slow process that got even slower after Micken said she had to drop her home insurance because she could no longer afford it. The home is still uninsured.
Not being insured, is that a fear of yours?
Well, it is a fear of mine. It is, but you can't fear things that you can't help. Because if I had the funds, that would be my top priority, is to get insurance, because if something helps, I'm not depending on anybody. But when you don't have it, what you gonna do?
I can't afford to live here. It really hurts that just to, you know, put in my head that I would lose my house.
For years, WWL Louisiana has documented the state's insurance crisis. Homeowners who say premiums are too high, insurers who balk at the risk, and one big gamble that's left the state teetering on the edge of an unnatural disaster. The tidal wave hit after Hurricane Ida in 2021. That's when a dozen insurers went out of business, and dozens more decided Louisiana wasn't good for business, stopped writing policies.
We don't want to go back to that. We can't afford to go back to that.
Tim Temple took office as insurance commissioner in 2024. Since then, Temple's task has been to right the ship, bring back insurance companies, and lobby them for lower rates.
We have right now over 100 companies licensed to write homeowners insurance in Louisiana. It's not just adding more companies, but it's adding companies that truly want to come and write in the areas that we need.
If insurance is so high, $7,000 for the insurance. Your flood, you have to have homeowners, you have to get flood. What you gonna do? Not eat, not buy your medicine?
There are things that our local officials can and must do.
Andronika Morris is executive director of Housing NOLA, which for 10 years has worked to expand affordable housing options after Katrina.
The legislature has tried, they've struggled, and they've got to get better, and we've got to work with our partners across the state on that front. While that's going on, the leaders in New Orleans cannot pretend like they don't have any responsibility, like they don't have any ability to address the insurance crisis. They absolutely do.
Morris says building code upgrades have helped, but says real change starts with lawmakers in Baton Rouge. We follow that front with lawmakers pushing to strengthen a program the Louisiana Legislative Auditor says is working: Fortify Homes. The grant program offers homeowners $10,000 to go toward installing a fortified roof.
It has to be a 26-gauge drip edge. This one's Florida Building Product approved.
Inspector Ashley Vandermeulen walked us through what that means.
Every shingle, I have to find these tags.
Vandermeulen's job is to assess whether a home qualifies, and if it does, whether the roof being installed is in line with fortified guidelines. Stronger shingles, more nails, thicker decking. Overall, a better roof to better withstand a storm.
I'm more protective than I was with the old roof.
Back in the East, Gail Micken has a new fortified roof. She got hers thanks to a $15,000 grant, not from the state, but Gulf Coast Bank and Trust. The bank's program helps low to moderate income homeowners. Their incentive? A stronger roof reduces risk.
A lot of us, wouldn't be able to get the main things that we need, to take care of our house because the funding is just not there.
20 years after Hurricane Katrina, insurance proves a lifeline crucial to the very heartbeat that is Southeast Louisiana.
When did life start to feel normal again? And, I'm sure it was different. It was a new normal.
It was different, but I tried to make it as normal as I could, even in the process before I was back in my own properties. I started hunting and fishing again. I went shrimping in the lake. We had the most bountiful white shrimp season post-Katrina that I've ever seen. The storm had just done something to the ecosystem and filled the lake with white shrimp. And you could go out and drop your net. You couldn't go 3 to 5 minutes before the boat would stop because your net was so full of shrimp.
Wow.
And so that went on, and that's what keeps you going. You do the things you used to doing. Mm-hmm. You have your shrimp boil. You go duck hunting. You do what you got to do.
The way of life didn't end.
No, it did not. It did not.
No say what they say. Mardi Gras morning is a hell of a day. But you better sew it right. And never come out when your head get tight. 'Cause I sewed all night long. So we got back, we masked at the right that year after Mardi Gras, same day, when the Indians came out. And they was coming from Texas everywhere, but they had their suits with them, I was fixing my suit up, and I know they're coming back because they couldn't be who they really was somewhere else because they don't do that up there, Texas and all the places they was at. We got together with all the other tribes till we're all coming in white because we got to clean up the city. So everybody's suit was white, and we came out, and it's just like any other Mardi Gras day.
Why was it so important to come out Mardi Gras Day?
It was our culture, and that was the day, and we had to be out there, I mean, just because of a hurricane or two in the city, let's bring the city back to the way it was, and that's what we did. I've been all over the world, and I ain't seen nowhere I would rather stay than here in New Orleans. I want them all to keep this tradition going because I was taught as a kid, and I kept it in me, keep it in you, and don't let nothing distract you. Always look forward, you know where you're going.
Now, there is a new sign of life that's there, that's been welcome. When I was out there in the lower Ninth Ward with our photographer, Chris Russell, we saw all of the cars driving by and they were beeping horns, and it seemed like everybody was excited to see something happening there, and it was because they were students. And these students, all under the age of 20, young kids who were not even born when the storm hit. Mm-hmm. They're called the Eternal Seeds, and the Eternal Seeds are part of a program from B. Mike. He has an amazing studio, Studio B, that is in that area. And they go through this summer-long program, and they spoke this time to people who had experienced Hurricane Katrina. So based on everyone sharing their stories, they took these stories and they storyboarded them, and they created a story through their art. So they decided to paint the story of the Lower Ninth Ward on the levee wall.
Let's start grabbing the tarps out first. As artists, how do you create a memorial, which is a representation of exactly what happened? Like, this happened, don't forget. We want a reflection of what this neighborhood represented. The joy, the collectiveness, people, the memories. I'm hopeful that this simple act of putting paint on the wall is enough to put the battery on the back of the folks who used to love this space, who need a reminder as to why we still love this space. Some people might feel we should have gave up a while ago. I think it's a sign of how important we understand these spaces to be. Arts and culture are always ways to connect us back to why we love something. All these young artists who are working on this, that they embody what's possible when we use our imagination to look further down the road.
This is the place. This is the place that became the symbol of New Orleans, a New Orleans that was pulling itself up by its bootstraps, that was trying desperately to bring itself back to life.
Some of us are going home to FEMA trailers. Some of us are going home and we're sleeping on the ground, or we live in Baton Rouge or Lafayette. We are back together in a space that we once were in when there was tragedy and devastation, but we're here for joy this time.
I don't think I can quite describe what it was like. I wasn't even in the dome. I was outside doing live shots. The crowd was so loud. I can't even describe how happy people were. For so many months, everybody has just been wading through it, you know? And just to have something that was happy, that brought people together, it was incredible.
I never would have thought last year when I came down here to see the dome, how the state it was in, that we'd be back here. So it's great.
What do you like about New Orleans? Crawfish on a Sunday with strawberry beer from Abita, or you know, gumbo in the winter, and talking about gumbo weather and me making gumbo when it's 300 degrees outside. I don't care. I will do that, and I will invite people over, and we will sweat, and like we will just have a great time. I will take my cocktail and walk around the city. And I will
that's the best part.
Have the best time.
Even when you walk outside and someone's just playing a trumpet on a corner, you know, where our station is in the French Quarter, you know, those walks around the French Quarter can sometimes be amazing when it's not 1,000 degrees outside.
Right.
It's a groove we have.
No storm is ever going to be able to take away.
And it's worth fighting for.